Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People.
There's an old saying, you see the same people on the way down as on the way up. But before we start, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. The best revenge. About 15 years ago, I had a horrible boss. This guy was an a-hole and liked it. It went beyond being demanding or easy to anger. He actually took pleasure in trying to humiliate and belittle everyone in every single conversation he had with them. He was a director, and he let it go to his head. This guy would demand you do something, and when you did it, demand to know who told you to do it. And when you said it was him, he'd smile and threaten your job. I avoided him the best I could. However, at one point, a posting in another state opened up, and I wanted the job. I asked for and was given said posting. I was told to be in that state in 2 weeks. I broke the lease on my apartment and paid the difference. My wife quit her job. We went out there on our own dime and found a place to live. 2 days before we were set to move, I get the call. It's a-hole boss. Don't bother going out there. I've decided to eliminate the posting. I was livid. My life was totally interrupted, and when I complained, I was told I had an attitude problem. I stewed for a few days, but then found a position at another company in the state I wanted to be in and moved out there anyway. I came to find out that eventually the a-hole director took another job at the competition. All went well for a while, but then he got greedy and began negotiations with yet another company using his corporate email address. Like a effing idiot. They obviously found out and fired him, but the icing on the cake was that the other company he was talking to never gave him the job after all. So there he was, jobless. This was pleasure enough for me. Through a friend who knows the a-hole, I found out that he never seemed to get a job after that. 6 months went by, then 12, then 18, then 2 years, then 4 years. He got poorer and poorer. His hot wife left him and took the children with her. He was sleeping in an empty house, which was eventually foreclosed, and he got kicked out of. At this point, things get fuzzy, because even my friend didn't know where he was. He may have been in the street. He may have moved in with his aging mother. Meanwhile, my own career had been an upward arc, and I was climbing higher up that corporate ladder. It wasn't long before his resume ended up on my desk. It's a small industry. Normally, I would have tossed out his application because everyone and their mother in this business knew he was caught courting the competition on the company dime. His reputation as a total jerk was well known. And the job he applied for was low level. I mean, $10 an hour, low level grunt work. He was a former director at 6 figures and now was willing to work crappy work at a crappy wage just to feed himself. Anyone would have considered him overqualified, including me. But I had to have him in my office. I wanted to see him on the other side of my desk asking me for breadcrumbs like a common street beggar. I wanted to see this a-hole who nearly ruined my and a dozen other lives and laughed at it, groveling for a job at my effing feet. So, of course, I scheduled an interview. I was going to waste his time like he wasted mine. It was one of the most pleasurable experiences I've ever had. He pretended not to recognize me, but I could see that he did. He'd gotten skinnier and reeked of desperation. He had no idea that I knew the whole story. So he lied to me about the whole reason he was out of work, and when I told him exactly why, he looked defeated. I told him I had no place for a liar, let alone an a-hole, and when he tried to shake my hand at the end of the interview, I refused and asked him to leave. And our second story, a revenge twofer. These events took place over 15 years ago at the large railcar repair shop where I worked. I was in a different department from all these folks, so I was an observer rather than a participant. The shop got a brand new head boss, and this guy was a total jerk. Slightest infraction of the rules would earn the guilty party a 3-day suspension from work. A good example of this would be coming back from lunch a few minutes late, which was all too easy to do since the sandwich shop across the street was always very busy with long lines. Obeying the rules did not apply to the boss, though. It was soon noticed that he was frequently off the property for no legitimate reason. Also, the stock clerk let it be known that he was ordering all sorts of construction material through the company that was of no use in the shop. Some of the mechanics took to tailing him around with a camera. What they discovered and documented was this jerk was using the materials ordered through the company's stock system for projects on his outside business. He was let go, No surprise there, after 2 decades in the job with a complete loss of his pension. Actually, the company was lenient. It declined to prosecute. Now for his number 2 man, who was an even bigger jerk and, having seen what happened to his boss, was twice as stupid. There was a company-wide policy against working on private vehicles on company property, even when one was off the clock. Since we were all mechanics, the temptation was very great. Some people were discovered doing so and were punished. This jerk went beyond working on his own vehicle. He set up a word-of-mouth auto repair shop on the property. Like boss number 1, he acquired his tools and repair parts through the company stock systems. Everybody in the building knew it. Now, our payroll clerk's wife was in the last stages of terminal cancer, and the clerk had to take frequent sick days. He had plenty banked up, so he wasn't ripping off the company to care for her. He was harassed unmercifully, forced to stay late, and forced to do jobs outside his classification. That was the last straw. Time for payback. Same result. The mechanics documented everything on paper and with photographs. When company investigators showed up, they discovered a cargo container crammed full of heavy machine tools and auto parts, all of which had been ordered through the company stock system. He was fired too. And our last story. Steal my bin? Ha! Lose your home. Background. I live in England, and my flat is owned by a housing trust, meaning it's a rented public property, basically a council flat. I moved in last November, and the first thing I did was go down and meet my downstairs neighbor. Our flats are an old house converted into flats. We both get a front door and our own front and back gardens. I have the upstairs flat, meaning I get a little downstairs storage space and then a nice upstairs flat and gate into my back garden. Downstairs flat doesn't have inside storage space, but they get 2 sheds in the back garden and a back door. My flat is directly atop theirs, even though our doors are side by side. Anyway, I move in and go to say hello to the neighbors, introduce myself, and explain that I have TV and music on every hour that I'm in. For mental health reasons, I can't sit in silence, and of course I'll try and keep it quiet. But this is a new flat. Noise levels will be different to where I lived last, and if it's too loud, just come bang on my door, and naturally I'll turn it down. My neighbor, we'll call her Charlotte from now on, smiled and nodded and assured me that it'd be fine. They're a little loud too, and the same goes for if they keep me up. With that done, I head back up to my flat, feeling good that my neighbors were nice people. Well, I'm sure I'll be wrong again too. I parked my wheelie bin by the fence that divided our front garden at first, and I noticed that her bin was full to bursting and wondered if that was a common problem or just because Charlotte had a massive cleanout. That was until I go to put my own bin bags in my wheelie bin and find it full, with the exact same bags that she uses. Not black bin bags, but yellow ones for some reason. Very distinctive. I brush it off, fine, annoying, but whatever, and I move my bin to the bottom end of my garden by the gate so it's easier for me to put out on bin day. This works for a month. Then I catch the flu. I put the bins out before it hit me hard, so on bin day and the day after, I couldn't get out to put my bin back in my own garden. I get better, go to fetch my bin, and find it's in my neighbor's garden, full. There's no way it could be a simple mistake, because my bin is covered in stickers, because I'm a grown-up and I like stickers. Anyone that would look at it would go, oh yeah, that's Cheshire Kitten BDP's bin. So I start to plot. First stop, wait till she puts the bin out. Drag it back towards my flat, and get it back in my garden. The second, the bin men are done because I can't afford the fine from the council to get a new bin. And for the kicker, I noticed while hanging out washing in our backyard and rescuing my inside kitty when she fell out the kitchen window, that her back shed is full of bin bags. And it was now spilling over into the garden. Our back garden is steadily filling up with trash, and Charlotte rarely, if ever, puts out her bins. And her one is full to bursting still. Her recycling boxes are overflowing with dishes in one case for some reason. So it's a pretty easy assumption that she's just tossing her rubbish out into the back garden rather than dealing with it. So it begins. The revenge. I'm on the panel for the area where I live, where the residents of this housing agency's homes can air complaints and help decide where the money's spent. I bring it up there in a nonchalant, will it stop the cut you promised me of my back garden that's full of rubbish? That's when the conversation moves on. I'll leave it. I start taking pictures of the back garden, of her front, and forward them to my housing officer. The trash mountain still steadily growing and growing. My housing officer comes around and slips into the back garden through my gate with the premise of examining for the cut, then sends her a warning letter. He later tells me that she claims the trash was there when she moved in, and since there's no proof to the contrary, they'll just come and clear it out. Right, I think. I'm gonna frickin' get this. So I make friends with the family whose garden borders ours, where our fence panel is blown over, leaving a nice gap. And there I hide and wait. Their kids think I'm hilarious because I sit in one spot in their garden and just stare at my own garden. The adults understood. They lived in council properties all their lives and completely understand bad neighbors. Then, after 3 days of sitting there all day and into the night, I finally get what I want. A quick video of her opening her back door and throwing out rubbish bags. Not the neon yellow ones, the black ones that match the trash pile already there. Jackpot. I snap a few pictures of the pile, thank my new friends, and head home to email the video to my housing officer. 2 days go by, I've heard nothing, but that's normal. This is a society of red tape. I had a feeling it'd take a while, but I was feeling gleeful already. A week goes by, another, then suddenly we're in February and I'm starting to think that maybe nothing's gonna happen. Until I get awoken by a banging and clattering downstairs at 10 a.m. I grumble and huff and head out to look out my front window, and lo and behold, white van, and they're carrying out furniture. I check my emails and there's one from the housing officer. Thank you for your help. Steps were taken and ignored. Final action being taken, or something along those lines. Success. So I made myself a cup of tea and sat on my couch by my front window, gleefully watching them load up the white van. I even give a little wave when they notice me watching them, full-on crap-eating grin on my face. Aftermath. Back garden has now been cleaned, flat is now occupied by a lovely girl who I've spoken to on occasion, and given the same explanation of noise. Still not heard anything on that, so I guess my noise level isn't so bad. And we chat if we're both hanging our washing out at the same time or something. Don't know where Charlotte's gone, but I bet it's private, since if you get kicked from a housing association property, you aren't getting another one. Lesson: don't mess with my Ben. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one with more great stories and crazy people.